Hello, hello, hello. Welcome aboard to episode 3. I hope everyone's had a lovely week. Been a busy week myself. With the restrictions seem to be being eased in the UK and here in Finland actually coming towards June. Hopefully that's keeping people's morale a little bit higher than it has been previously. We are moving onwards with the Tortcast. Been quite excited to record another episode. Obviously, where I'm working full time still, it is a little bit tricky to keep it up, but it's an exciting thing, and I hope people listening are enjoying it. We have plenty more people scheduled to come and join, mainly from Germany and Italy at the moment, but also we'll be having some Russian guests and Swedish soon. So quite a wide cast, and I may even interview my mum at some point. If you're listening, Mum, there's your heads up. Now, for those who were listening to the previous episode, at the very end I did say we were supposed to have a friend from university, a friend called Matt, on this week, but we've had to push him back a bit further, sadly, due to just scheduling mix-up. So today we have my friend Flavien, who is from he's from France, very near to Paris, so we'll have some to share in that regard. And once again, if you have any sort of suggestions for the show, or if you want to get involved, then just let me know. Just drop me a message, either through the Tortcast or Lewis Jarrett, my personal page, for those who know me. And also the Tortcast Instagram will be running up soon, and we'll probably have some images to kind of summarize the episodes, as well as, for example, starting to include maybe some international cuisine. Whatever sort of meals you may be interested in, if we talk about it on the show, we'll have that included in the description of an Instagram post. So, whether you're at work or at home, bored out your mind, whatever it may be, here is episode 3 of the Talkcast. Thanks for joining. Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of the Tortcast, Flavien. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
How have you been faring the past few weeks, past few months now? Are you doing okay indoors?
Yeah, I'm doing okay, but it's locked down, so it actually ended last Monday, but people I just don't get out yet.
Yeah,
no point.
You don't want to rush out so quick, I suppose. And I think France has fared much better than the UK, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been paying attention to how the UK's gone, but yeah. So, whereabouts do you live? Do you live in the countryside?
I live in Paris suburbs, so I'm actually pretty close to Paris, like 20 minutes in train.
So everything's been shut down where you are as well. It's not like, because I know some countryside places have continued operating in a roundabout way, but
you have to fill papers to get out, and if it's not considered a good reason to get out, you get fined. That's how it worked during lockdown.
Yeah, I think that's just been a similar thing in the UK, but it is pretty sketchy when I have to think about what's considered an essential reason for going out, you know? So for example, my mum has recently moved into a new house, and I was concerned whether that would be, is that an essential reason to move house in this time? But apparently
it was okay for us as well.
Have you been able to keep on working? Do you work from home or?
I worked for like the 2 first weeks of lockdown. Then my contract ended, so they couldn't renew because they didn't know if they could keep me for later, because they don't know if they're gonna have work.
I see.
So right now I'm unemployed.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Everything's so unpredictable at the moment, isn't it? It's very difficult for businesses to decide to keep on hiring. What was it you were doing?
I'm a web developer.
Oh, amazing.
So I was working on a platform for online formations.
Okay.
More like courses.
And how long have you been doing web development?
I've been doing it for like 2 years. It was 1 year in full-time school and 1 year in internship. It was like 3 weeks job, 1 week school.
Okay.
It was pretty fun. So I graduated like last month.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was quite recent then. What a time to graduate.
Yeah.
So
That's really weird.
are you hoping to get back out there once the restrictions and everything? Well, you said the restrictions have eased up, but like, are you going to be looking for more work now, or are you going to wait a bit more for things to settle?
Yeah, I'm already looking, but takes time to company and business to
For sure,
restart because almost everything was stopped. Yeah, it's complex.
Yeah. Finding a job right now amidst everything reopening is quite difficult. I mean, I see it's quite demoralizing in a sense when you see. Do you use LinkedIn, for
Yeah, I
example?
used LinkedIn for contacts, but I think I got my job from Indeed or something like this.
Oh, okay,
I don't
yeah.
remember.
I was just going to say, because
But
on
yeah,
LinkedIn, it's quite demoralizing sometimes seeing tons of people saying, like,
yeah,
get out there and get your jobs now. Like, I know it's hard, but do it. And it's like, it's not that simple. It's not that simple.
yeah. Just cross the road forehead. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, just get a job, just do it.
yeah, that's this, and no, it doesn't work like that. Not
Yeah,
not for every job, at least.
I saw one post recently that actually made me a little angry in a sense when I read it. It was saying, it was some psychologist, I think, and she was saying, I had a client come to me saying she's feeling demotivated trying to get a job. So this is what
Hmm.
I did for her. I set her a timetable, and it says something like 9 a.m. get up, 9:30 have breakfast, 10 o'clock spend 2 hours working on your CV or resume, 12 o'clock lunch break. It's just this really rigorous thing, and it was saying like 5 hours of working on your CV per day, 4 hours of applying for jobs per day. And I mean, that's something you can do for like 2 weeks, but after that, it
Yeah,
is
I mean,
difficult to stay
even
motivated.
2 days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no way anybody can stick to a routine like that. And yet you have these kind of professionals on LinkedIn sharing and saying this is what you should
Yeah,
be doing. It's
no,
quite
it,
unrealistic, I think.
it's probably far too much. Like, yeah, 2 3 days doing that's okay, but
Yeah.
I think your CV is like, I mean, even one day, it's like you don't have to change things every day.
Yeah.
It's useless.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think people do put too much emphasis on the value of CVs.
Yeah,
I've seen classes that say like, oh, using this font means you're gonna get dismissed, or not putting your age next to your name and putting it below your name is a bad idea. Like, I don't know. I think some people put way too much emphasis on these things when ultimately I do think connections is like a much bigger
yeah,
thing.
connections, and if you're in digital art, something like this, you have a portfolio generally. So it's more like stuff you do that matters than your CV.
Yeah, I'll make sure I ask you to do the website for the Tortcast when I come around to it.
Sure.
So, I mean, are you only looking for work in France, or would you consider going abroad?
I considered it, but I have a loan to refund, so I'm pretty fucked when it comes to leaving the country because I need money for that, and obviously I don't have money.
Yeah, yeah.
So, though I'm looking outside of Paris as well because I have family around the country, so I can move if needed.
Yeah, moving abroad is quite an expensive
Yeah.
process. Where did you study? Like where you live as well, or have you moved throughout the country?
I studied where I live because, as I said, I live near Paris, so everything is there pretty much.
Everything is there. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of similar with the UK in a sense as well. Obviously, I mean, you have Manchester and Birmingham and some other places, but ultimately, it's kind of London is where
yeah.
everything is. But is commuting into Paris as expensive as it is for commuting into London? I think from where I lived in the UK, you could be looking at 20-30 pounds return trip from like just an hour train.
So, yeah, I got to London once. Yeah, London is really expensive when it comes to transport. I think because like
Yeah.
for me it was 75 euros a month for unlimited transport. That's really
I,
cheap compared to UK.
yeah, I'm very jealous of that because I've gone from the UK to being here in Finland, and transport here in Finland is still uh, like 120 euros per month, which is still, it's more reasonable than London, but it's
Yeah,
still
It's still
really
expensive.
Yeah, I'm actually still quite upset because I spent €200 on a 2 month pass,
Hmm.
and it's for like, so Helsinki is split up into like different zones, and where I was working was in a further zone, so you needed to buy a more expensive pass.
Yeah,
And
we have the same thing.
yeah, and then the offices and everything closed because of the lockdown. So I haven't even used the pass despite spending €200.
You can probably ask
And
for a refund or something like this,
the
maybe. No.
no, they were offering refunds, but only for between certain dates,
Ah, yeah.
and the date that I got it for wasn't applicable. So that's just €200 down the drain.
Yeah, and in Paris, like when you work in Paris, your company have to pay half of the transport. It's
Oh,
like regulation because otherwise people can pay really huge amounts. Because I live in suburbs, so I get the regional pass, let's say. But for people that lives in like 100 kilometers and other
yeah.
regions, they have to actually take other transport, which costs a lot, a lot more.
I guess I should look at actually working in Paris if I want to save a bit of money,
You could.
as opposed to being here. I mean, I've only been to Paris once. I've been to some other places in France because, I mean, as I'm sure you know, with the UK and France being so
Yeah.
close together, it's quite common for obviously British people to go to holiday in France. Is the converse true for people in France? Do people go on holidays to the UK often?
Yeah, I mean, I did it. So
Yeah.
I got into London for like 5 days.
Oh, nice,
And
nice.
I was pretty much visiting friends at first, but I ended up visiting London in general.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, here in Finland, going to France and the UK is seen as like quite a luxury. You know, it's an expensive trip to do,
Yeah.
and so I always find it. I do find it a little funny how. Well, I don't have I personally don't have the kind of romantic sense of Paris that is kind
Mm.
of quite a famous worldwide phenomenon. But I think a lot of people in the UK, because Paris is so close, it's not as kind of romanticized in a sense. It's like a kind of local holiday place. I mean, it still is, of
Yeah.
course. But here in Finland, you know, they see the British very much as being like gentlemanly and royalty and so on, and they see Paris as being, you know, the city of romance and everything. And it's a much more extreme sense because they're a bit more out of touch here, which is. But I mean, I suppose we also have quite weird expectations of Scandinavia and the Nordics, don't we? I mean, when you think of Norway, do you still think of Vikings,
I
or do
mean,
you know a bit more
when I
about
was
them?
younger, yeah, probably, but
Have you been to anywhere in the Nordics?
nah, sadly. I wanted to go in Finland. Actually, I have friends there.
Hey, you can come visit.
Yeah, I want to visit so many countries, man.
Yeah, I think, yeah, same. I wanted to travel. I've been wanting to travel a bit more. I wanted to do a round trip of, you know, Oslo, Stockholm, Tallinn, and so on. Maybe Reykjavik in Iceland. That would be nice as well. Could do with relaxing in some volcanic springs after this. But yeah, now how expensive is travel from France? Because the UK is a flight hub, obviously, so flights are quite cheap. But what about France? How's
Last
that traveling
time I
outside of France?
checked, let's say Paris to Helsinki. Helsinki. Yeah, no prices, but yeah, it's between 200, 300 euros. It's
Okay,
not
so
that
yeah,
expensive.
I mean London Helsinki I think is about 150, but so yeah, it's only a bit more. It does suck though that Helsinki isn't a flight hub like London, because if you want to go anywhere, you have to
Yeah.
pay significantly extra. I mean, the Helsinki metro is a very different experience to the Paris metro. What do you think of the Paris metro, by the way? Have you been to many other metro stations?
I think I took one of the worst line for a year. It was line 13, which is like, if I remember correctly, is the fifth more populated line in the world. It's messy.
Yeah, but how cheap is Paris metro in general?
I think it's like €2 a ticket, so it's like 1 hour. What? Yeah, 1 hour commuting, or it's between destinations, and then it's just one travel.
I So yeah, I lived in Moscow before being here in Helsinki, and the Moscow metro is insanely grand. And not only that, it's just so cheap compared to any other metro. If you wanted to go anywhere, it was like 30 rubles, which is like, I don't know, 50 cents or something.
That's really cheap.
For any journey anywhere. Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, everything in Moscow is cheap. You can get a taxi across the city for like €5. Whereas I remember when I landed in Paris and almost got into a taxi, it turns out they were going to charge me like €90, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Yeah, if you travel in Paris, just take a Uber
Yeah, Uber's
and
massive.
avoid peak hours.
Yeah,
It's like
peak hours
the worst.
in Paris. I can imagine you'd end up pretty much having to. Might as well just buy a house in Paris to get the same price.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because we were speaking about travel,
Yeah.
Are there any places that you would like to go outside of once all the flights and everything start kicking up again? Or is there anywhere you've been before that you really liked?
I want to go to Singapore and Malaysia because
Singapore, yeah.
because I've been told that food is really good there, and I like food.
So is food like a big thing for you if you go abroad?
If I travel, yeah, especially in Asian countries, because they all have different things, and everything looks so good every time I check. So
What do you think of French cuisine then? Do you think it's better or worse than, say, Singapore and Asian food?
I actually can't say because it's like what I eat since I'm born. So
So what do you normally eat on a daily basis?
I mean, I'm really picky when it comes to food. I don't eat really much, but I think French gastronomy is okay. But I don't eat most of the things, so
Yeah, I'm yet to actually experience it myself. I mean, I was only in Paris for FanFest, as you know about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't really get the opportunity to kind of experience a Parisian palate. But okay, comparing it to British cuisine, what do you think of British cuisine?
I can't say. Like, I got in London, but I mostly ate Asian food.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that is one of the best things about London. It's the fact that
Yeah.
Sure, British
I think
cuisine
so.
is completely sidelined, but the fact is you can get pretty much everything else there. And I mean, here in Helsinki, I ordered a Chinese takeaway, and that was like €30, whereas in London, there's Chinese takeaways everywhere, and you can get them for like £10 or so. So
Yeah. That's not
Yeah.
expensive at all in London.
how is Paris for its diversity in food?
It's very diverse. I think there is everything everywhere. Most of the time, you have to get picky when you choose place to eat because it can be a trap.
What do you mean?
It can be really bad or it can be really good. It depends on what you eat and where you go.
I thought Paris was like amazing in every regard.
No, that's a myth.
And you're saying it's bad places? Yeah. So, like in the UK, for example, Indian and Chinese food is really big, whereas here in Finland, it's more. You see more Nepalese places. You don't really see Indian food as much. Is there like an equivalent in France? Is there like a particular dish or foreign dish that's kind of popular?
Yeah. I think we have kebabs everywhere.
Kebabs. Okay, so that's the French thing. Kebabs.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of kebabs personally. So I worked in Cyprus for a little while, for 2 or 3 months, and that's kind of my experience there is kind of what's put me off kebabs and so on, because Cyprus, that's kind of their national dish and they eat it every day.
Oh.
So when I came back home, I was like, no, I'm never going to a kebab.
Yeah, that's fair. But know that like in the last 2 years, 3 years maybe, there is a thing that started to grow. It's called French tacos, which is not a tacos but more like a burrito with meat inside instead of veggies. It's basically meat, French fries, and cheesy sauce inside. It's really good.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good actually. I could do with that. The French tacos are the big thing, then okay,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
consider
actually
that
good.
instead, because I do like tacos.
Oh.
I do miss getting takeaways. I mean, I've been waiting for restaurants to open up again because it's. I'm not a massive cook myself. I do like to cook, but not like every day. And with the restrictions and can't really do restaurants. I'm looking forward to going out to restaurants again.
I like to cook, but it takes time.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. I mean, I live in quite a small apartment, right? And so whenever I cook something, whenever Leader and I cook something, it ends up taking pretty much up every surface in the room, every table and everything.
Yeah.
And so it's such a process to then kind of clear everything up because the sink is small as well. So as soon as you put like a frying pan in the sink, then the sink is full. And so then like other dirty dishes end up piling onto the tables. But how big's the place you're living in? Are you comfortable?
Yeah. I mean, I live at my parents' for now, but yeah, we have a huge kitchen, so yeah, we have a huge kitchen, so we were pretty much comfortable when it comes to cooking. We can do multiple things at a time, but I like to cook when I am alone, so I can just put music and dance while cooking. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
that is the same for me. I recall quite fondly actually at university. At university, we had a really kind of small kitchen. It was more like a kitchenette, and there was like 9 people who used it. So that was pretty awful. So
Oh,
and everybody who I was sharing it with, they were international, right? So they were from Singapore, India, South Korea, all countries that are kind of famous for cooking really nice dishes.
yeah,
And
I
then there
see.
was me. Then there was me, the white British male who just wants to cook like something simple. And I would go into the kitchenette to cook something, and if there were other people there, I would
Just have to wait.
I'd be like, yeah, I'll come back later. I'll come back later. And then when I was cooking
Yeah,
by
that's fair.
myself, I'd have a lot of fun. I'd put music on. I'd be dancing. I'd be like doing things, looking forward to eating. And then
Yeah.
somebody would come in, and I would just be like, my mood was instantly killed. Just then, standing there with the frying pan, waiting for it to be done. So yeah, there is something about cooking by yourself. I think that's quite. It's quite cathartic, it's very relaxing to do.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I would love to have a large kitchen to actually experiment more with that sort of thing. So before I started my work that I'm doing now, there is a French bakery a few streets away, and they were looking for apprentices.
Ooh.
So they were looking for apprentices, so I could have joined this French bakery and I could have, learned some French patisserie maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And well, the reason I didn't end up doing that, well, 2 reasons. One, because my work and everything is in tech, so I wanted to do more in that sense. But 2, French, macarons, for example. Macaron. Macaroons. Are so nice, and I just knew that if I worked at a French bakery, I would be eating so much. Like I don't think I would survive in Paris. Actually, I would probably be going to the bakeries all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually not a lot of French bakeries in Paris, but yeah, when you find one, it's really good.
Yeah, if you have a local favorite, I'd probably go there all the time.
Yeah.
But, so the other thing that I feel I have to ask, because you live in France, are you an avid skier? Because everybody I know from France is a massive skier. Like, do you and your family go once a year to the Alps or something?
Oh, no. No. Ski is expensive. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, that's what I always thought, because when I grew up, people in the UK don't really go skiing and snowboarding unless you can afford to fly to the Alps, obviously. But a lot of French people I've met are avid skiers, so I was curious if you were one as well.
I think last time I got to ski was 10 years ago with school. So yeah, it's a really long time away.
Yeah. So, do you do like family holidays much in France, or do you normally go outside of France? Like, do you do much traveling around within France? Because France has so much to offer.
When I take holidays, I like to leave the country because I've pretty much done everything in the country when I was kid. Or I just go to my brother's because free beach.
Yeah, that must be pretty nice,
Yeah.
actually. I mean, here in Finland, the popular thing to do is like go out to cottages, because Finland is pretty big and has a very small population. So basically, yeah, you can get a cottage by a lake pretty much anywhere. That's like the thing to do. But like in the summer, I guess, do a lot of people, for example, just leave Paris and go to the countryside and relax out there.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. In Paris during summer. It's mostly tourism. Not a lot of people actually stays in Paris for holidays.
So, what would be your top recommendations for somebody who wanted to go to Paris?
I'd say museum, to be honest, because
The Louvre.
yeah, the Louvre, for example.
My British butchered pronunciation.
It was good. The Louvre, yeah, that's actually good. Yeah, mostly museums because monuments like Arc de Triomphe and Eiffel Tower are mostly full of tourists, and obviously it's not really enjoyable. You can go to Trocadero because like there is tourism, of course, but it's huge place, so you can breathe. Let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always uncomfortable when you go to a museum and it's just packed. So
Yeah.
Have you been to the Louvre yourself?
Yeah, a couple of times. When I was kid mostly, but I got it. I got there actually like 5 years ago, and I actually enjoy going into the Louvre. It's like a really huge place.
I haven't been myself, but obviously, I know about it, and it's in so many films. But one thing I have heard is that the Mona Lisa is like the most disappointing thing to see. Is that true?
I guess it depends when you're going in.
Yeah, because I've heard pretty much most times it's completely packed in there, and everybody's just holding their phones up, and it's a really tiny frame, and
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing with the Louvre is it's like in three parts. So there is paintings, sculpture, and other things. I don't know exactly what's in the third category. But yeah, the thing with the most tourism is more likely the painting because the Mona Lisa and stuff. But yeah, it really depends when you're going.
When's the best time to go? What time of year would you say you should go to Paris?
Winter.
Winter.
Yeah, winter. There is much less tourism.
Yeah, I can imagine it with the Eiffel Tower lit up.
Yeah.
I can imagine it looked very pretty then.
And Paris in winter is actually good when it snows and stuff. But
how often does it snow in Paris? Does it snow every year? Or like...
I'd say every year, but with the seasons being weird and stuff, we didn't see much snow like the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a warm winter here, so it didn't snow much like when it was supposed to. But then it did, and it snowed again today. It snowed again a couple of days ago. But yet, I was in shorts yesterday, and then it snowed today. So, and people want to say climate change isn't real.
Yeah, no, it is definitely real. I do believe it's not entirely our fault, but we definitely don't help.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with museums, I can guarantee you that if you do come to Finland, A, there aren't many museums, but B, the ones you do go to, there's plenty of space because, it's not that big of a tourism destination. They have quite a lot of open air museums here, which are really nice to experience. And they have like an island, I can't remember what it's called, but they have an island kind of dedicated to old architecture, like old buildings and old kind of farmhouses and so on, and you can kind of walk around the entire island and it's all part of the museum. So that's good.
That looks interesting.
So I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you really is about the controversial topic of Brexit. And what's kind of been the view in France towards Brexit? Because obviously France being one of the main seats of the European Union, How do the people you know normally look at the whole Brexit situation? Because we haven't heard anything about it for months because of the virus. It's like died down. So
It's kinda weird, to be honest, because there's people like who really agree with it, and there's people who don't agree with it at all. There is almost no counterpart in the middle.
okay, so it's pretty much the same as in the UK then.
Yeah, let's say we have the pro euro and the pro independence. There is actually no middle because people are just
Yeah.
we want euros and we don't want euros. There's a lot of people actually wanting to go back to franc and leave euros as a money. And dude, it's been 20 years. It's not possible.
Yeah, you can't just switch back that easily.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. And I personally think Brexit is not too bad of a thing, but there's definitely things that could have been different, I guess.
Yeah, I think the whole situation could have been handled better, but on both sides, I think there's a lot of misinformation from the media to the public. But it is interesting to hear that in France, that
It's the same.
yeah, because I do think a lot of people in the UK who very much are against Brexit often use, say, the rest of Europe as like backup for their argument. You know, they're like, oh, well, we have friends in France and everything, and they don't want us to do it, or whatever. But it's interesting to hear that in France it's the same. I mean, it's very similar here in Finland as well. There is kind of support for the European Union that's kind of waning. It is kind of fading a little bit because people are angry with how the European Union has handled the virus. Because Finland, I think, is one of the big finances. You know, they send more money than they get from the European Union. So yeah, it is interesting to hear that from France it's the same. Do you reckon France will end up leaving the European Union, or do you reckon that's a long way off?
I think we are kind of stuck with European Union right now.
I mean, I think if France left the European Union, then it just wouldn't be a thing anymore.
Yeah.
You'd kind of just have Germany, I suppose, then. But
yeah. I mean, we're like, I think the two biggest countries in Europe, so we're kind of stuck with it.
So, have you spent much time in neighboring countries? Have you been to Germany or Belgium or Spain much?
I've got to Spain a couple of times, but it was mostly because I have family in the south, so I can just cross the border to do groceries and stuff.
Yeah, just walk on over to Spain.
Yeah, fuel is actually much cheaper in Spain.
Yeah, there's a thing here in Finland that actually a lot of Finns do a kind of beer pilgrimage. They'll take the ferry over to Tallinn in Estonia and just buy like beer and cigarettes and stuff and bring it back to Finland because it's so much cheaper.
Yeah, we can do that with Belgium as well because everything that is cigarette is like much cheaper. It's not the same taxes, so people just who are close to the border just cross and get like 5 kilograms of tobacco and just go back with it for like half the price that you would pay in France.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Like, you know, it's such an easy kind of loophole, such an easy get around. You would think that local prices would be a bit more competitive.
Yeah, I mean, there is border control, obviously. So you can't really take too much with it.
You just come back with like a whole car full of tobacco and they're like,
Yeah, everything would be taken by the border control. And you will be like, so I paid for that, but I also have a fine to pay because I got greedy. And I lost my merchandise.
So what are the big holiday destinations then for people in France?
I think it's mostly beach and maybe mountains as well. The Alps are a really good destination for summer because it's not too hot, obviously. And if you like walking in mountains, you can definitely do that because it's actually beautiful.
So would you say in general, French people stay in France rather than go to Germany or Spain, for example, or the UK?
I think most people stay in France because of work and stuff as well. They can't really live too much, I think. But when you reach like a certain age, you wanna leave the country to get actual holidays far from home. Like, I know my parents don't want to take holidays in France anymore because
That's
we saw everything basically. So
I don't know if I'm just speaking for myself here, but I think generally it's the opposite is true in the UK. A lot of people in the UK tend to go abroad when they can. And yet, like, for example, I only went to Dublin for the first time a few months ago. I mean, granted, it's not United Kingdom Dublin, it's in Ireland. But, it's closer, it's easier to get to than, say, flying out to Germany or something. Very few people actually go to Scotland. I think generally people don't really go around the UK that much unless it's for family or something like, or some sort of event. But I mean, that's also because, well, moving around inside the UK is so expensive. I mean, I looked up this a few months ago and I realised it was cheaper to fly from London to, I think, it's like 21 different countries.
oh
It's cheaper to fly from London to, I think, Romania, Germany, France, Spain, Belgium, Austria, like so many places, than it was to just get a train from London to Cardiff in Wales. So, what's the point in travelling around the UK if you can just fly elsewhere for cheaper?
I mean, I think in UK you want to travel by car, I guess. Probably cheaper than transport.
Yeah, a lot of people drive, but the problem is driving around London is a nightmare. Like the M25, the nearest motorway.
Yeah, I mean,
it has a traffic accident and congestion pretty much every day.
yeah, I think Paris is pretty much the same when it comes to traffic.
Yeah. I actually, the most recent time I flew back from Finland to Heathrow Airport, it's meant to be an hour drive, and it took 6 hours because it was just stuck. Like, it was quicker to fly from Helsinki to London than it was to then drive from the airport to my house.
That's insane.
So, might as well just stay here.
Yeah.
I have one controversial topic I'd like to talk to you about for the final few. We'll go on for another 20 minutes or so, I think. But now, I know that you're aware of the massive Animal Crossing craze.
Yep.
Have you been playing it yourself?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, Lida's been playing it pretty much non-stop, but she did get tired of all the Easter eggs in the Easter event.
That was a bad event, in my opinion.
But there was one thing I wanted to talk to you about, see what you think of this. But did you know that Animal Crossing has ended up being banned in China? So for those of you who don't know listening, Animal Crossing is a new Nintendo game that came out. And it's been really popular because, well, the joke is it lets millennials live the life that they can't wish, that they can't get in real life. I.e., you basically build homes and you own your house and you have friends on your island and that sort of thing. But anyway, yeah, did you know it's been banned in China?
I didn't know. I'm actually surprised.
Yeah, it's been banned in China because, and I don't want the podcast to get banned for bringing this up, basically people using Animal Crossing as a medium to protest the government. So, in Animal Crossing, you can import like your own images, your own models and stuff. People were importing pictures of official people in the Chinese government and like burning them and stuff and protesting and using their votes within the game. And as a result, China's banned the game.
But yeah, that's not a bad reason, considering it's China. But
but it's a funny. It's not funny. It's a very serious kind of topic, I suppose. But it's funny to discuss because so these people who've been protesting the Chinese government have basically ended up getting the game taken away from everybody else in China who may not be protesting. Do you think Animal Crossing was a good medium to do the protests, or like, do you think
no? Like,
do you think it was fair of them to use it?
It's a game. I mean, it's mostly a kids game because, I mean, a lot of people who are playing the game right now are not kids at all. It's mostly nostalgia for most of us, I guess, because like I played the first Animal Crossing, I think it was 13 years ago. Bringing politics in the game is not a good idea, I think, because at the end it's a game to escape reality, at least I would say. So I think it's really bad to protest in the game.
Yeah, you could argue that you're kind of ruining the game for yourself by bringing politics into the game. You know, the game is
Yeah,
meant to be
for yourself
enjoyed.
and mostly
But
others, I guess.
yeah, but the other thing to say is that, well, it is well known that Chinese authorities have been very restrictive and, you know,
Yeah,
stopped people. And especially during the virus lockdown, people haven't been able to get out. They've kind of seen the game as their only way of protesting against the government. So, in a sense, are they really to blame if that's kind of one of their only ways they can get across, you know, voice their concerns?
yeah, yes and no. But I mean, I know internet is really restricted in China, but
Yeah. But you still think, like, as it's a kid's game, it's, you know, it's
yeah, it's
inappropriate.
you're not supposed to bring that in this game at least. It's not something you should put into the kids. Like,
So, do you reckon if it was a more adult game, like, say it was some sort of, I don't know, Call of Duty level editing, and you could make a protest in there, do you think that would be okay?
it will be less annoying for people, I guess.
Yeah, because you would, yeah, I suppose, because by banning Animal Crossing, you're mostly punishing children who don't
Yeah,
even understand
exactly.
what's going on.
That's exactly the point. And
Yeah, whereas if you ban like Resident Evil 5, it's like, well,
yeah, I mean,
everybody's going to be like, well, okay.
politics in Resident Evil would be weird, but
Okay, well, it certainly made me laugh when I read that headline. I mean, you should look it up if you haven't seen it. Apparently, there are now black markets for Animal Crossing and stuff in China.
yeah, I'm not surprised.
So yeah, because in China it's a big thing to have, you know, those like game cartridges that have like tons of games illegally downloaded onto them. Yeah, Animal Crossing is now like a sought after one. But what a strange kind of society to imagine, to be honest. Where
Yeah,
Animal Crossing becomes some sort of underground
I mean,
subject.
I'm actually surprised I didn't hear about that earlier. I heard about protest in the game, but I didn't think it would go that far back then.
Yeah, yeah. I think there has been some pushback, so I don't know if like they've carried through with it, but that was what was on the table. But anyway, well, thank you very much for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
There's still a lot more I'd like to talk about, but you
Already,
know,
oh
we're
my
sticking
god.
to hour-long episodes, so I suppose all else I want to ask you is, do you have anything else you'd like to tell people about France or about what, you know, life is like in your area and that sort of thing?
Nah, I don't think so.
You think people have a pretty good idea of France? You don't think there's anything that people misjudge?
I think people think Paris is a really good city, but when you're inside, as someone who live there, it's more likely the opposite effect. We are like, no, it's dirty.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, I have to admit, I mean, homelessness is quite high in
Yeah,
Paris,
it's
isn't it?
high, and the city is not that clean, to be honest. I mean, you've been there, so you can see what I mean when I say that.
It's the yeah, it's one of the only. I've done a fair bit of traveling, and I've seen my fair share of homeless people on the street, and it's always a really sad sight. But I think Paris is one of the only cities where I actually saw like kids and families like sleeping on a mattress outside. That was
Yeah,
quite shocking. But there is one stereotype I'd like to say you have broken successfully. It's that a lot of people do say that the French hate speaking English. And you've done a whole episode.
I
So.
mean that's not wrong, but I think younger people are gonna break this because I think it's since like last 5 years they start actually talking English earlier. I learned English by myself mostly because at school it was mostly written English, so we didn't speak mostly. It was really annoying, and when I had to learn English, I knew how to read it. I got a lot of issues spelling stuff because I didn't have the basics I wanted to get. But that's because I left school really early to do other things, like to go into a 3D artist
Oh,
thing.
that's cool. You should explain more about
I
that.
didn't
Actually.
get my diploma for there. because I got LCSU. So, but yeah, it was 3 years course, I think, and then I took a year break trying to get a job, but ended up finishing in a formation to do web development, which I know I'm graduated.
I mean, that is quite a good industry to get into right now, I suppose. So
yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize you did that. I mean, that's part of the reason I'm doing the podcast is because I want to try doing something more creative, actually. Because I've always done tech stuff. So, yeah, no, being a 3D artist is something that's pretty interesting to at least practice for a while.
Yeah, but I would do that as passion and not a job. It's really exhausting.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when you're doing something because you have to compared to being paid for it. It's the same with Lida does a lot of crochet, and I've said she should really try like making something out of it because I reckon she could get people to buy some of the things she makes. But she does think that if she started doing it for money, she'd get tired of it, and she doesn't want to ruin that passion, which I understand.
Yeah, she's probably not wrong about this. I mean, she could try. She could try for a bit.
She always try it. She's set up an Instagram page, so we'll see how much traction that gets. Because her personal profile is like 6,000 followers or something, which is like a lot. And I'm like, if you start converting that into into customers,
potential clients, but that's a lot actually.
Yeah. Well, amazing job with your English, because I'm always impressed when people learn languages by themselves, especially later on in life, because it's really difficult. And you're right, I do think younger generations will bring English more into their lives.
Yeah.
I myself, every British kid does French at school. I did learn some French. I was quite good at it, but I was doing French, German, and Spanish at the same time.
That's a lot.
And I ended up then just doing German. So my German is better. Whereas French, pretty much all I can say now is like, je joue au foot. That's it.
Yeah, you played football. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Et j'adore la piscine. That's it. That's the extent of my French. So yeah, your English is much, much, much better. But it's always interesting listening to younger kids here in Finland speak English, because they are so much more. I feel like young kids in general, their education is getting so much better than we had it, let alone how our parents had it.
Yeah,
they're learning coding and languages from like a much younger age, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so I hear these Finnish kids, they're doing like TikTok dances on the street or something, and they're speaking Finnish, and like halfway through their Finnish sentences, they'll just start speaking fluent English, and I'm like, what's going on? So Finglish is a thing where you just kind of mix Finnish and English. I'm sure it's the same in...
Yeah, we have Frenglish as well.
Yeah, I don't know, it just makes me uncomfortable hearing it sometimes.
It's I think cringe into a word.
Yeah.
Because it's actually disturbing when people do that.
Yeah.
I tend to do it, but it's like, because I'm in a state where I speak more English than French in my life. So like starting, I think early in the year, like February, I started actually thinking in English and not in French, because I was mostly speaking English on a 7-day basis. I would speak like French one day.
Yeah, you just end up forgetting French eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I can't let French alone, because my parents are really, really bad at English. My mom never learned English, actually.
It's the same with a lot of older people throughout the world, isn't it? It's as younger people are so much more exposed to social media and international media, then they just naturally obviously use the language more and more.
I mean, I learned English by watching TV shows.
That seems very common. That seems a very common thing to do. Yeah, I've watched tons of, I watched some Russian TV and some Finnish TV. I mean, obviously not to the same length that I'm sure you did watching English programs, but I just don't think I could ever learn from it. But maybe it's because of my age as well. I think the older you get, the kind of less acute you are to picking things up, but there's still time.
Especially, like, learning English as a French is much easier than the opposite, if you see what I mean.
That's not fair.
we have a lot of things that are actually complex. Even for French, it's like, why the fuck we do that?
I say that to Lida all the time. Finnish has like a 16 case system in the grammar, and I'll read something and I'll understand what it means. Like my reading in Finnish is okay, but then I'll ask like, oh, why does this word have this ending, for example? And she'll be like, I don't know, it just is. And I'm like, well, and then I explain my reasoning from what I know about the different case systems. I'm like, well, surely shouldn't it be this ending? And she'll be like, no, it just isn't. I mean, I know English does have a lot of exceptions as well, doesn't it? But I feel most of them are from like French origins.
Yeah, I think it's mostly German origins actually.
No, I mean like well, yeah, I mean it's German origins as well, but I mean in the English language there are a lot of like French adaptations that I think we just kind of abuse, and they don't really fit into the English language, and so they're exceptions to like English grammar, but we don't care because we're English and we just make it up as we go along.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming onto the show, and
thank you for having me.
Once things settle down and probably start being able to produce more, be happy to have you back on the show at some point, because I'd like to do more kind of group things. Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks to you.
That is a wrap. Thank you very much to Flavien for being on the show. I have stayed up far too late, actually, editing this. It's quite a lengthy process. I would love to do it live, but I'd love to do it in person. I'd love to have an actual studio to sit down and discuss these sort of things. Maybe do some more kind of group situation, that sort of thing. But it's been fun to do, and I hope you've had fun listening. We'll be here next week, each Monday, and the next guest is, well, we'll have to see with scheduling, but they're either going to be from Portugal or Germany or Sweden, or it'll be my friend from university. We'll see. But thank you very much, and this has been episode 3 of the Tortcast. Have a good week.